Don't worry, the Orioles were just waiting until their season was on life support to have their best weekend of the year.
You are Locked On Orioles, your daily Baltimore Orioles podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey there, Orioles fans. Today is Monday, August 17th, 2026, and welcome back into the Locked On Orioles podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. As always, I'm your host, Connor Newcomb, and coming up on today's episode, we will recap what I would say is the most impressive weekend of the year for this Orioles team, taking all three games on the road at the Trop against the first place Rays to put themselves right back in the thick of the AL wildcard conversation. We will talk about the big-time win on Friday night, Gunnar Henderson having his breakout game and the Orioles holding on in the ninth inning. We'll chat about the wild win in 10 on Saturday. Cam Sanders, the hero again. And then the Orioles just a giant sixth inning on Sunday. Yohel Pozo brings the vibes, and the Orioles take three games at the Trop. Now, I am recording here just to kind of timestamp this right around 4:30 p.m. Eastern time on Sunday. So I've got the glasses on because I got a second screen going to see what's going on with the other endings of important AL wildcard games at the moment. You know, Yankees leading the Blue Jays in the 10th. You've got a big Phillies and Twins game in the 8th inning. So depending on some of those games, also Rangers and A's will depend if the Orioles are actually in a playoff spot when you listen to this or watch this, when the O's wake up on Monday morning. But the worst place they would be is just a half game back of the playoffs on Monday. And that is not where I thought the O's would end up heading into this series after everything being right in front of them. Two teams in the AL wildcard race, and they lose both those series to the Rangers and the Twins. I thought it was pretty much over. I said on Friday's episode, I was like, I was as close as you can be to burying the team. I just said, look, like they've got Rays coming up. This feels impossible. I'll give them one chance to play well against good teams. But if they didn't come out and look good against the Rays this weekend, it was going to be a burying the Orioles week. Instead, they win all three games. And let's begin with Friday night. Final score from that one, Orioles 6 and the Rays 5 to open up this three-game series. And I'm going to get you the 5 things you need to know from that Friday night victory. And the first thing you need to know is maybe Gunnar Henderson is finally figuring it out for the Orioles. They moved him down to 5th in the order for the first time all season. He had not hit lower than 3rd in the Orioles lineup while he's played pretty much every single day. And it's been a long time that since Gunnar's been this low in the lineup. He hit 4th once last year in April. Otherwise, he was top 3 all of last year. This is the lowest he has actually hit in the Orioles lineup since September 28th of 2023, when he hit 6th in the order with the lefty Chris Sale on the mound for the Red Sox. Why is that date important? That was the night the Orioles beat Boston 2-0 and clinched their American League East title in 2023. That's the last time Gunnar Henderson has hit this low in the Oriole lineup, but he's had this coming. He's just been so bad this year. We've talked about the thought of moving him down because he's, come up in so many big spots for the Orioles and hasn't really come through. And this was a move they made, and guess what? I think it may have worked out. It gets a 4-for-4 day at the dish for the Orioles. On Friday night for Gunnar, he had a double, a homer. He had 2 singles. He scored 2 runs, got his OPS back up over 700. It was a big 2-run homer in the 8th, ended up being giant insurance runs. That made it 6-2 at the time. Now, I did think a lot of this move was because of how the Rays were planning on pitching this game. They started Steven Matz, the left-hander, who has been a starter in the past, but is currently working as a reliever for the Rays. And he was going to be a left-handed opener with the righty Jesse Schultens to kind of follow him in bulk work. So I thought was maybe Craig Albanaz wanted to stack the first inning with righties and get Pete Alonso, Kobe Mayo, and Tyler O'Neill early in the lineup to make sure they face the lefty in that first inning before he comes out after being the opener. So I was a little skeptical of saying, oh, this is going to be a long-term thing. This is where Gunnar's going to hit. I thought it was just because of the circumstance of the game. But either way, it maybe took some pressure off of Henderson, and it certainly worked out for him and for the Orioles. I mean, his second 4-hit game of the season, just the 7th of his career. He also had 4 hits May 17th in D.C. against the Nationals. The Orioles are now 7-0 all time when Gunnar Henderson has 4 more hits. It gave him an 888 OPS in August entering Saturday. Now, most of that damage was done recently because he had a 3-hit game on Tuesday, follows it up with 4 hits on Friday. But the best thing about Gunnar's month, and this was after the game Friday, he had 11 walks to just 6 strikeouts in his first 12 games of August. That was one of the big things Gunnar had not been doing this year through all the struggles, is getting on base specifically by walking. It's something he's been great at his entire big league career until this season. So to see him not only cut the strikeouts, but draw the walks and be more patient. You know, when I did my episode, it must have been back in June, that was just like, what is going on with Gunnar Henderson and how do the Orioles fix him? A big point was he needs to be more patient and draw more walks and then go from there. August feels like the start of that. Now, I wish he would have started this not 5 months into the season, but maybe more walks in August can set up a lot more hits in September. That feels like a possibility here. And if you're watching here on the Locked On Orioles YouTube channel, you'll see this chart from Baseball Savant. These are all the pitches that Rays pitchers threw to Gunnar Henderson in all 4 of those plate appearances that he had in Friday night's game. I mean, it's not a ton of pitches. He attacked pretty early in these at-bats, but you know what? We're looking at 10 or 15-ish pitches here. Only one single pitch that he saw was outside of the strike zone. It's that down and in slider you could see on the chart. Every other pitch was in the zone because teams, especially good teams like the Rays, have seen Gunnar's chasing. Gunnar's not doing as much damage in the zone. He's swinging and missing. We feel a lot more confident to throw him strikes. And they also saw, hey, Gunnar's been walking a lot recently. Gunnar's been laying off a lot more pitches recently. He's not chasing as much. We'll just throw him stuff in the strike zone because he can't hit. And he said, oh, wait, yes, I can hit. And maybe this can change a little bit about how he's pitched moving forward and can also set up some good things. It's the first time for Gunnar Henderson that he reached base 9 games in a 3-game span since 2024. He did that with the final 2 games in Minnesota and the first game in Tampa on Friday night. And listen, you know, he didn't end the weekend with more 4-hit games. I mean, he had himself a single and a walk on Saturday. He did not have a hit on Sunday, did draw a walk and scorched a couple of baseballs, got robbed of some hits, but like, the swings and the ABs still at the end of the day just look better right now for Gunnar Henderson. Second thing you need to know from Friday is maybe Dylan Beavers is figuring things out right alongside of Gunnar. Beavers been pretty much horrible since coming off the injured list in late June after that oblique issue, but he did have the big 3-run homer early in Wednesday's game in Minnesota. O's get the off day Thursday. Beavers not in the starting lineup on Friday, but with the bases loaded and 1 out and the game tied at 2 in the top of the 7th inning, the Rays went to right-handed reliever Kevin Kelly, and Craig Albernaz counters, pinch hitting Dylan Beavers for the catcher Carlos Narvaez. And Beavers has some history versus Kelly, hit a walk-off home run against him last September, and Beavers gets a 1-0 changeup in his happy zone and just rakes it into right field for a 2-run single to give the Orioles a 4-2 lead. Then came back up in the 9th, had another single at 106.1 off the bat, scorched that ball. Beavers, his first multi-hit game since July 25th, and he did it coming off the bench. Now, the defense has still been pretty shaky out in the outfield, but there are absolutely at-bats for Dylan Beavers to have right now in the Oriole outfield. And if he's going to come through like this more often than not, you know, there was a chance we thought early in the season the Beavers could be an everyday player for the Orioles this year. It just really hasn't worked out that way, but he still has time to get it back to that point. Third thing you need to know from Friday is that Tyler O'Neill is keeping himself on the field finally, and he is producing. O'Neill starts and hits 4th for the 7th consecutive game on Friday. We haven't seen him do that a whole lot. He gets 2 walks. He gets a single. He scores 2 runs. He had a big 2-out single in the 8th inning that kept the inning alive, got Gunnar to the plate, and allowed Gunnar to hit that 2-run homer to extend the lead. The only time the Rays got O'Neill out on Friday night is when he hit a rocket to the gap off our old friend Tyler Wells, and Cedric Mullins, our other old friend, made an insane catch up against the wall in left center field to take away extra bases from O'Neill. It took one of the better defensive plays I've seen in the big leagues this season to keep O'Neill off the base paths for a fourth time on Friday night. Friday's game got Tyler O'Neill up to a 103 WRC plus on the season, finally above average. And he's up to a 131 WRC plus against lefties, meaning he's 31% better than the league on average is against left-handed pitching. Because remember, that's what he was signed to do and basically hasn't hit lefties at all for 2 years now. But he has been on fire. And for Tyler O'Neill, at least entering Saturday since July 1st, a 180 WRC plus, a 16% barrel rate, and a 644 slugging percentage. That makes him the second best hitter in Major League Baseball among guys who have had at least 80 plate appearances since July 1st. Only Yordan Alvarez, who might win the Triple Crown despite not being a horse in the American League, has been better than Tyler O'Neill since July 1st. How about that? And the thing is, this is what I talked about when I, kind of reviewed Tyler O'Neill's 2025 and looked ahead to 2026 in the offseason, is that when Tyler O'Neill has been good in his past, he had the couple great years with the Cardinals, had the great year in Boston, he actually strikes out more, but he sells out more for power and does damage. And he's actually striking out more in this stretch, but he's also walking more and he's doing more damage when he gets the ball in the strike zone. This is the good version of Tyler O'Neill. It took a year and a half for the O's to see it, and I'm not sure if he's going to rebuild all the value he lost from the last season and a half, but man, this could not come at a better time for the Orioles. Fourth thing you need to know from Friday night's win is that Chris Bassitt returned from the injured list for the Orioles to start that game. Had been out since June 8th with a back issue that eventually required surgery. It was actually a back injury that apparently not a lot of baseball players get, not a surgery a lot of baseball players get, but he said it's the best he's felt all season, now fully recovered from the surgery. Made 3 solid rehab starts in AAA. The last one was 6 scoreless innings before he was ready to go. And we knew he was going to come back and take Cade Povich's rotation spot, who was optioned AAA after starting last Sunday. And Bassitt was activated on Friday. Yarmil Geraldo was optioned to AAA to make room for Bassitt. The Orioles were carrying 1 extra reliever, so it still sits them at 5 starters and 8 guys in the bullpen. But, velo was up for Bassitt on Friday from the year. That's a good sign coming back from a back injury. Command was still a little shaky, and those were definitely some of his issues when he struggled earlier this season before the injury. And he only got 2 whiffs on 36 swings by Rays hitters in this game, which is quite concerning when you project what Bassitt will do moving forward. But you know what? You'll take the results from one of the better offenses in Major League Baseball. 5 1/3 innings for Bassitt in his return, allowing 2 runs on 5 hits. He struck out 3, walked 3, no home runs, 88 pitches thrown for the veteran right-hander rejoining the Orioles rotation. And, it just feels like that. Is he going to be the high-level Chris Bassitt we've seen in recent years with the Blue Jays and the Mets? Maybe not, especially after back surgery. But if he's going to give you 5 1/3 and 2 runs every time out, I'm kind of fine with that, right? And if he can't do that, he goes to the bullpen, Trey Gibson or Cade Povich or even the Nestor Herman or Michael Ferret takes his spot, and you go from there. He's shown he can be effective out of the bullpen too. But even with how shaky he's looked at times and how there was still some issues with what he did Friday, just being the veteran that he's been with the playoff experience, he's the one I trust the most in a playoff race. If you had to give him the ball, you don't have to give him the ball in the postseason. You never need more than 4 starters in the postseason, so he would move to the bullpen. But even in this race, he would be my first choice, at least for now, and I'd have to see him post-injury kind of struggle to change that opinion. And the fifth and final thing you need to know from the Orioles' 6-5 win over the Rays on Friday night to open up this series is that Yennier Cano tried to give it away in the 9th inning. The O's bullpen was good at first after Bassitt. Josh Walker, Andrew Kittredge, and Rijo Garcia got the Orioles into the 9th with 2 2/3 scoreless innings with a 6-2 lead. And in comes Cano, not a save opportunity with a 4-run lead, but probably the best Orioles reliever left on this team with Tyler Wells traded and Ryan Helsley injured. And Cano just didn't have it. Like, he wasn't terrible. There was only 1 hard hit ball by the Rays. It's not like they were smoking him. They were kind of just dinking and dunking Yennier Cano, which is kind of what can happen to him when he has a bad night. But you could tell the command was a little bit off. It was only 1 walk for Cano, but he's out of there after 24 pitches, allows 3 runs on 3 hits, only gets 2 outs. First time all season Cano has allowed at least 3 earned runs in an outing. I mean, by far, basically, was Yennier Cano's worst game of what's been a fantastic bounce-back 2026 for him. I'm not really worried about him long-term after that outing. He didn't pitch Saturday or Sunday after that, but that's okay. He's fully ready to go tonight if the Orioles need him. He's just been so good all year. This just feels like a reliever blip against a good contact offense. But guess what? O's got him out of the game, and Cam Sanders was there for the rescue. Comes in, it's first and second, 2 outs, clinging to a 6-5 lead. And what does Cam Sanders do? First pitch to Ryan Vilade, fastball, gets a lazy fly out, gets the save on 1 pitch. Orioles win, and they take the opener. And you would have thought, well, that's got to be the highest leverage spot we'll see Cam Sanders in this weekend. Incorrect. Cam Sanders, even after the save on Friday, became an even bigger character on an even more impressive win on Saturday. We'll break that one down right after this. But first, this episode of the Locked On Orioles podcast is brought to you by FanDuel. Baseball fans, if you think you know who's hitting a homer today, FanDuel is giving you a free chance to call your shot with daily dingers. It's easy to play. Just make your free pick for who you think will hit a home run in their game. And if you're right, you'll receive a profit boost to use on your next bet for a chance at extra winnings. And best of all, you can make a free pick every day throughout the MLB season. Daily Dingers is another fun way to stay engaged with every day's games, whether you're following your favorite team or keeping an eye on matchups across the league. Every game has someone capable of going deep, and now you get the chance to make your prediction before first pitch. It looks like the star lefty Shane McClanahan is going to be activated off the injured list to start tonight for the Rays against the Orioles. He doesn't give up a ton of home runs the way he pitches, but the O's have some lefty mashers. And I got to take Coby Mayo for my daily dinger. He's hit a lot of homers off lefties. He's been the best hitter overall against lefties in Major League Baseball this year. I'm going to take Coby Mayo. So are you ready to play your game today? Join all the action at FanDuel.com. That's FanDuel.com to play daily dingers and make your free pick on who's hitting a homer. Play ball and swing for the fences on FanDuel, an official partner of MLB. So the O's were able to hold on despite a little mini ninth inning meltdown on Friday to take the opener in this series, but the opener wasn't going to be enough for the O's. They needed to do a little bit more to get themselves back into this race, and a little bit more they did on Saturday, coming up with another victory, winning it 4-3 in 10 innings over the Rays in that one. And I'm going to get you the 5 things you need to know from Saturday's victory. And the first thing you need to know is Cam Sanders has that dog in him. He gets the save on 1 pitch on Friday. Somehow his second save in an Oriole uniform since coming over on a small waiver trade in July. And so the O's say, you know what? 4-3 lead, bottom of the 10th, zombie runner at second base. Let's go to Cam Sanders to try and close this thing out with a 1-run lead. And he comes in there, gets a line out, works a walk, so it's first and second, 1 out. And what does he do? Strikes out Cedric Mullins, strikes out Richie Palacios to end the game and pick up the save. Got them both on just like 3 incredible four-seam fastballs up in the zone for whiffs. His four-seamer usually sits about 16 inches of induced vertical break, which is not bad for his arm angle, but it was up to 19 on average on Saturday night, which is like an absurd uptick in that kind of riding action on your fastball that makes it even more unhittable when you throw it up in the zone. That's why he got those big swings and misses on those key pitches. And the battle against Palacios for the final out, who Palacios has just, Towson Tiger, former Towson Tiger, has killed the Orioles this year. It was an incredible battle. If you're watching here on the Locked On Orioles YouTube channel, you'll see here, this is the pitch by pitch battle from Baseball Savant between Sanders and Palacios in the 10th inning on Saturday night. 8-pitch battle. He throws a first pitch slider for a called strike. Then he throws 4 consecutive changeups. This is a guy in Cam Sanders who has a changeup, but doesn't really use it a whole lot. And he throws 4 straight changeups to Palacios. Throws a crazy one for a swinging strike. Throws one in the dirt where Pozo makes an amazing stop. Then back-to-back changeups are fouled off, including one right in the middle of the plate, which looked like it was going to be the game-winning double down the line, but just hooked foul into right field. Then he throws a slider that misses. Then another fouled off changeup. And then finally on the 8th pitch, 98.2 miles an hour up in the zone with a fastball, gets the swing and miss to get the strikeout. Pozo behind the plate was fired up. Sanders on the mound was fired up for his 3rd save. as an Oriole. Just an incredible battle. Two pitcher and hitter locked in. Two guys who are not known to be the biggest contributors and faces on their teams, but were just in a huge moment in a playoff race. That felt like postseason baseball in the 10th inning on Saturday. It was so fun. I mean, he throws 5 changeups in that 8-pitch battle. The 98.2 mile per hour fastball is the 6th fastest pitch Sanders has ever thrown in the big leagues. It's the first time he's ever thrown at least 5 changeups in the same plate appearance to a hitter. And Cam Sanders, who now has 3 saves in his first 6 Orioles outings after coming over on a waiver trade earlier this year, he becomes just the 3rd Oriole ever to be acquired mid-season and record 3 saves in his first 6 outings with the O's. The other 2 were Tippy Martinez in 1976 and Eddie Fisher in 1966. The only 2 other Orioles to have done what Cam Sanders himself has done this season with the rec specs and all. It's incredible stuff. It's never been good command. The Orioles somehow have gotten him to command the baseball, and he looks like a legitimate high-leverage reliever that this bullpen desperately needs at this moment. Second thing you need to know from Saturday night is that it was a huge hit from Tyler O'Neill in the top of the 10th inning that put the Orioles in this spot. Leading off against our old friend Brian Baker in a 3-3 game with the zombie runner on second, O'Neill lashes an RBI single up the middle to score Cowser and give the Orioles a 4-3 lead. It was Tyler O'Neill's only hit of the game after the big game Friday night, but it continued his hot streak since July 1st. The even more interesting thing about Tyler O'Neill on Saturday is he was hitting leadoff. Yeah, not just that he led off the 10th inning, he was in the first spot in the lineup. O'Neill had only ever had 5 career plate appearances in the leadoff spot in his career entering Saturday, and all 5 of those plate appearances were as pinch hitters, usually pinch hitting for a lefty leadoff hitter against a lefty pitcher late in the game. Saturday was the first time O'Neill had ever started as a leadoff hitter. He's been in the big league since 2018. It also pushed Gunnar Henderson into the 5 spot for the 2nd straight game. Now, Gunnar did hit 3rd again against the righty on Sunday, and it was another lefty on the hill for the Rays Saturday and Ian Seymour, but maybe something that'll stick, at least versus lefties, with Gunnar getting moved down a little bit. But the other big thing for O'Neill, not just that he had the winning hit, not just that he hit leadoff, is that was the 8th straight Orioles game where Tyler O'Neill has been in the starting lineup. And with all of his injury issues, that's kind of crazy. That's the first time with the Orioles in these last 2 years. He started 8 straight games. He did it once with the Red Sox in 2024, did it with the Cardinals in 2023. Now, O'Neill was not in the lineup on Sunday, so it did end that streak at 8. But his career high is 11 straight games started back in his healthiest season in 2021 with St. Louis. But the 8 straight is the longest since 2021. This is a level of health that we have not seen from Tyler O'Neill in 5 years. And it's also a level of production we haven't seen as much from Tyler O'Neill in a while. He is in a really good stretch right now. Third thing you need to know from Saturday is that we kind of saw both sides of the Christian Encarnacion-Strand experience. A solo home run in the 6th inning off the lefty Ian Seymour gave the O's a nice little insurance run to put him up 3-1, crushed a ball off a hanging changeup off the bat. Just the 2nd home run Seymour has allowed all year on his changeup in the 3rd of his career. It's his number 1 pitch. It's one of the best changeups in Major League Baseball, and CES was all over it. And he did make a couple nice defensive plays early in the game. Made a couple of really good defensive plays at third base on Sunday as well. But he couldn't make the play with the game on the line. 1st and 3rd, 2 outs, bottom of the 9th. Orioles up 3-2. Kittredge on the mound for the save. Junior Caminero, one of the best hitters in baseball, at the plate. And Kittredge throws a perfect 2-2 slider to Caminero, down and away, out of the zone. Caminero just gets the end of the bat on it to hit a slow roller to 3rd. And it would have been a tough play for CES anyway. He was playing back against the hard-hitting Caminero. He charges it. The ball pops in and out of his glove. Caminero is safe for a game-tying RBI infield single in the 9th. Even if he fields it cleanly, it's going to be a bang-bang play. That's why it was called a hit. But these are the little things that the Orioles have not really made the plays in these big spots. These are the spots where it hurts still having Blaze Alexander out. Now, we did get some I'd say, good Blaze Alexander injury news this weekend. He's doing some baseball activities, hopefully getting closer to a rehab assignment. So that's a good thing. But for now, you've got Encarnacion-Strand over there. And even though he didn't make that play, the one thing I will say is, like, CES, I think, has proven he is a better defender at third base than Kobe Mayo is. Like, those are the Orioles' 2 choices at the position right now. CES and Mayo are actually both hitting, which is nice. But in terms of defense, Encarnacion-Strand, I think, has that spot despite the play in the 9th inning. What I think was honestly more interesting was the decision for the Orioles there, right? Like Kittredge gets the first two batters out, then he gives up back-to-back singles. You got runners on the corners. You've got Caminero up with 35 homers, one of the best hitters in the league. And on deck, you have Nick Fortes, the righty hitting catcher, the backup catcher for the Rays, who had come in as a pinch hitter later in the game. So that's why at that point he was in the 4 spot behind Caminero. And the Orioles decided to pitch to Caminero, and Kittredge pitched it well, just got unlucky, and then Fortes popped out to keep it tied and send the game to extras. But you got to think they at least considered intentionally walking Caminero there. Now, it's an interesting decision because when you have first and third, if you intentionally walk, you move the winning run from first to second base, which means, if Caminero just singles, at that point, the game is tied. If you walk Caminero and Fortes singles, as long as it leaves the infield, you lose that game in the bottom of the 9th inning. So that would have been a really risky call, which is why I think Albernaz decided to let Kittredge face Caminero. Would have been a heck of a decision to make with the much worse Fortes on deck, but putting that run closer to scoring. That's why I'm not a big league manager, right? That is a really, really tough decision. Even after, Alex Hoppe and Josh Walker and Rico Garcia had done a nice job out of the bullpen to keep it at a 3-2 game, Kittredge just couldn't quite get that 27th out to win it in 9 innings. And I'm sure some people would have walked Caminero, but you got to think about the implications of moving that winning run up. I get both sides, but I would have backed the aggressiveness too had Albernaz made the call to walk him. Fourth thing you need to know from Saturday is that Pete Alonso had another huge game, but also a bit of a scare at the end of this one as well. 3 hits for Pete, including another opposite field home run. It was a solo shot off Seymour in the 5th to put the Orioles up 2-1. Pete's now got 12 Oppo homers on the season. Not only is that a career high, that leads Major League Baseball. He's got 27 bombs on the year. I mean, he's got over an 1,100 OPS in the month of August now. That gave him 4 straight multi-hit games. That did end on Sunday because he only had 1 hit because they kept walking him or hitting him in that game, so he didn't have a chance for multiple hits. But 4 straight multi-hit games tied a career high. He did that once in 2024 and once in 2022 with the Mets. And that gave Pete Alonso 14 hits in his last 6 games, which is a new career high for him in a 6-game stretch. Just crushing the baseball right now. But the only thing that made you worry is in the 10th inning when he singled to right field to try and, keep the rally going against Brian Baker, he limped up the line as he got to first base. And Albernaz and the Orioles training staff came out to check on Alonso. He did end up staying in the game, and he did play first base defensively in the bottom of the inning, but he did not look comfortable at all. Albernaz said after the game it was a calf cramp. Pete said he would play Sunday, which he did. Now, he was the DH. He was not out there at first base, so that tells you a little bit. He was probably still in some pain, but hopefully he's good to go and be back at first base tonight. It made it a little more perplexing that the Orioles then, after the Pete hit, decided to have Jackson Holliday lay down a sacrifice bunt after Brian Baker had given up back-to-back hits for, I don't know, what feels like the first time all season, which is with as good as he's been. And of course, like Albernaz all season, a dumb sack bunt decision didn't work, and the Orioles left him loaded and only got the 1 run off Baker when they had a big chance to get multiple runs. Luckily, it didn't backfire on him, but you really hope Pete is okay, and I think the fact that he did play Sunday, even as a DH, is a good sign for that. And the 5th and final thing you need to know from the Orioles' wild 4-3 win in 10 innings over the Rays on Saturday is that Kyle Bradish had a quality start despite really a lack of whiffs. He got 2 strikeouts against Junior Caminero on some awesome sliders, but that was kind of it. Only 4 total whiffs on 35 swings from Rays hitters in this game. That is an 11.4% whiff rate for Bradish, the 3rd lowest whiff rate of any start in his career. Had one at 10.5% earlier this year, had one at 11.1% in May of 2023. That is it. Threw a ton of sinkers. The command was okay, but he did tie a season high with 4 walks, which isn't great for Kyle Bradish. His final line, 6 innings, 2 runs, 7 hits, 3 Ks, 4 walks, no homers on 93 pitches for the right-hander. Just something was just a little off at times. Just couldn't get that sinker like right to the corner at some times when he wanted to. But this is what the Rays do, right? They strike out and they whiff less than any other team. And yes, Chris Bassitt's not a whiff pitcher, but that's why he had a minuscule whiff rate on Friday. That's why Bradish had a minuscule whiff rate on Saturday. This is what you expect from the Rays. They put the ball in play. But what I think was more interesting than anything else from Kyle Bradish's start on Saturday, he threw 4 changeups. You all know I've been a Kyle Bradish guy forever. So excited he signed a 5-year extension. I was fired up to see him throw the changeup. Now, initially in game, they were all labeled like 90-mile-per-hour sinkers, but Bradish throws a mid-90s sinker. You know that velo is too low to be a sinker, and it's got different movement. After the game, though, they were relabeled as 4 changeups. He got 1 called strike with the pitch. He even threw a first pitch changeup to a batter. All 4 of them, of course, came to left-handed hitters, but this is a pitch he's used before. When Bradish debuted in the big leagues in 2022, he had a changeup. He threw it for 2 years. Over that stretch, he only used it about 7% of the time. Then, he had the injury in 2024. He came back and hasn't really used the changeup since then. This was his first changeup that he's thrown since October 1st of 2023. Same velocity as before, around 89 to 90 miles an hour, but 2 more inches of vertical movement, 3 more inches of horizontal movement than the old changeup he used to throw. He's a guy who has a crazy good feel for spin, but not really a feel for a changeup. But if he can just have a changeup he throws 5 to 7% of the time like he used to, that takes Bradish to another level because it gives him a weapon, just kind of a show-me weapon against left-handed hitters. I've been kind of waiting for him to bring this pitch back post-surgery, and we finally saw it on Saturday. Not saying to become like a number 1 pitch for Bradish, a big strikeout weapon, but for just him to have another tool in his toolbox and be willing to throw it again, I think is very, very exciting for the Kyle Bradish arsenal, and it helped the Orioles be able to hold on, win that game on Saturday, and take the first 2 in this wraparound 4-game series. And to be honest with you, like the Orioles just taking 2 out of 3 this weekend in the first 3 would have been awesome. But you know what? They said, not only are we going to win Sunday too, we're going to have a statement blowout victory over the Rays. That's coming up next. But first, I also want to thank our friends at Amazon for this limited ad break. This back-to-school season, spend less on your kids with Amazon. We all know how crazy the back-to-school shopping experience can be. It starts with a few items on the list, and suddenly you're shopping for supplies, clothes, lunch gear, tech, and about 10 other things you didn't see coming. It really adds up fast. That school supply list, feels like everything makes sense, but then you look at it, you're like, am I shopping for one child or the entire kindergarten class at this school? Shopping can get out of control with it if you're not careful. And then you got that last minute panic, right? It's 9 p.m. the night before the first day of school, and your kid's like, hey, by the way, I need folders. You never got folders. You get on Amazon Prime, you order those folders, they can come tomorrow before 7 a.m. and they can get to school with those folders. So remember, with Amazon's low back to school prices, just spend less on your kids, because every dollar you don't spend on them is a dollar you haven't spent on them. Shop back to school at Amazon and spend less on your kids. So the Orioles got the big win Friday, got the big win Saturday, but they were both nail biters, 1-run games. The Orioles haven't been very good in 1-run games this year, so it was really nice to see them get back-to-back wins on the road in a 1-run game against the best team in the American League. Sunday, though, was not a 1-run game. That was a blowout victory for the Orioles, a 10-2 win on Sunday for the O's. They have taken the first 3 of this 4-game wraparound series against the Rays, and I'm going to get you the 5 things you need to know from Sunday's victory. And the first thing you need to know is the Orioles offense had its biggest inning of the season. A 7-run 6th inning in this game took it from a 3-1 lead to a 10-1 lead. The most runs the Orioles have scored in any single inning this season. They had scored 6 runs in an inning 4 different times, twice in April and twice in June, but never 7 runs. It's the most they've scored since they had a 9-run 7th inning in Colorado last July in that wild 18-0 win over the Rockies on July 26th of 2025. They actually scored at least 7 runs in an inning 4 different times in 2025, kind of similar to this year's offense where it was able to explode like as good as anybody else, but overall a very disappointing offensive year. But the funny thing is last year, 4 times they had at least a 7-run inning. 2 of them happened against the Rays, and it happened against the Rays again this year. And the crazy part was it all came when there was 2 outs and nobody on. Steven Matz came out of the bullpen in the 6th, retired the first 2 batters, and then 8 consecutive Orioles reached to score 7 runs. It went single, home run, single, walk, double, walk, walk, double, and then a Dylan Beavers strikeout finally ended the inning after 7 runs to make it a 10-1 lead. I've talked about how this Orioles offense, despite its struggles, has been one of the best big inning offenses of the year. They've been among the leaders of innings with 5+ runs. Add another one to the tally that this O's offense, when they're rolling, can kind of explode on you at any given time. Second thing you need to know from Sunday's win is that Yohel Pozo, of all people, provided some incredible vibes in this Orioles victory. Pozo, who came in and caught the end of Saturday's victory and was fired up after Cam Sanders got that strikeout to end the game on Saturday. He got the start behind the dish on Sunday. His first start since Tuesday in Minnesota. Remember, in that game, he was hit on a swing by Josh Bell in his catching hand, had to leave the game with injury in the 3rd inning. It's been mostly Carlos Narvaez catching since then, but Pozo healthy enough to come in the game Saturday and then start on Sunday. It's the first full game he's caught for the Orioles since August 6th in 10 days. And he had a couple of funny reactions early in the game when he held on to some foul tips on some pitches from Trevor Rogers for some strikeouts. But he also did some stuff at the plate, reached base twice, had a single early in the game, had a walk in that big 6th inning. And when he worked that walk in the 6th, he turned around to the Orioles bench after taking a 3-2 pitch for ball 4. And he had what we'll call an interesting gesture to his fellow Orioles to celebrate that walk. And the O's dugout was fired up. They were laughing. Some of the faces, of some screen grabs there were just incredible to see. Like Cowser and Beavers and Gunnar and Jeremiah Jackson's reactions were just unreal in that dugout. He is clearly a guy who they like having in there, and is definitely providing some vibes for the Orioles as their backup catcher right now, who's only been in this org for less than a month at this point. And you know what he did after that? Well, he scores from first on Jackson Holliday's 2-run double later in the inning with an incredible slide at home plate to avoid the tag from Nick Fortes and get the run right there. They had to review it, but it was a great tag, like kind of get his body around and just kind of reach his hand in there to touch the plate before he was tagged. Really, really cool moment from Pozo. He was fired up after being called safe. And listen, like Samuel Bassitt is getting closer to return. We got more good injury news on him this weekend. He actually began his rehab assignment. He was catching for AAA Norfolk on Sunday in his first rehab game. Had like a 2 RBI double in there. The swing looked good. He's going to play a few rehab games this week in Norfolk before he was ready. But as early as this upcoming weekend against the Rays again, they could maybe have Bassitt back. And it's more than likely that Yohel Pozo will be optioned to AAA for Bassitt, and they'll keep Narvaez as the backup because Narvaez is just the better defender than Pozo. But would you even slightly consider keeping the Pozo vibes around? Maybe you would, because he's provided more than just production at the plate or behind the plate for the Orioles right now. Third thing you need to know from Sunday is that Jackson Holliday provided probably the 2 biggest swings of the day for the Orioles. He went 2 for 4 with a double, a walk, and 3 RBIs, just his 3rd game of the year in which Holliday has driven in at least 3 runs. And the first big moment came in the 5th. Orioles had runners on first and second with 2 outs in that 5th inning. Freddie Peralta was pitching pretty well, his best start as a Ray so far since being acquired at the deadline. He was through 4 2/3 scoreless innings at only 76 pitches. The Rays had a 1-0 lead at the 5th, but the lineup flipped over to lefty Holliday, who was hitting leadoff, and Kevin Cash kind of surprisingly went to his bullpen, went and got the really good lefty reliever Garrett Clevenger to come in and face Holliday to try and shut down that inning. And the announcing team on Peacock was a little perplexed by that move. I thought it was interesting with Peralta, who was pitching really well and only at 76 pitches, but it was a 1-run game, and the Rays felt like they needed this win. And what did Holliday do? He delivers an RBI single up the middle off Clevenger to tie the game at 1. And that put the Rays in a bad spot because they had gone to their best lefty in a big spot in the 5th. And then when it didn't work out, he had to face Pete Alonso. And of course, Pete came through with a 2-run double down the line to put the Orioles up 3-1. I mean, it was another big game for Pete, who was DHing. He had 2 walks. He was hit by a pitch. He's just continues to be incredible. And then for Holliday, later in that 6th inning, he had what I would consider kind of the finishing blow in this game, a 2-run double off of Steven Matz in the 6th, made it 7-1. Now, Encarnacion-Strand did follow it up in that inning with a 3-run bases clearing double that made it 10-1 that really blew it open. But the Holliday hit felt like the big one because he's basically had even splits this year, been basically just as good against lefties than he's been against righties, but he's striking out a lot more against lefties. And in big spots, he has not come through against lefties. Jackson Holliday had just 1 single hit against a lefty with a runner in scoring position, entering Sunday this season. And on Sunday, he had 2 hits and 3 RBIs against left-handed pitchers with runners in scoring position. Just the second time in his career he's had 2 hits versus a lefty with runners in scoring position at the plate. Just big, big moments for Jackson Holliday, who's been a whole lot better lately for the Orioles and is becoming really a piece you can depend on in this roller coaster of a lineup this season. Fourth thing you need to know from Sunday's win is that Colton Cowser had a huge home run in this game for the Orioles, got the start against the righty Peralta, but stayed in there against the lefty in the 6th inning, got a hanging breaking ball from Steven Matz, and deposited it into the right field seats for a 2-run homer to extend the Orioles lead to 5-1, and really did start that 7-run 2-out rally in the 6th inning. It was just Cowser's 7th hit and first home run against a lefty this season, just his 11th homer against a lefty in his career. And it makes me continue to say, just play him in center field every day. Why are we doing Leody Taveras? Why are we doing Christian Franklin? Why are we doing Dylan Beavers out there? Just play Colton Cowser. He's by far the best defender out there of anyone. And although he struggles against lefties, so does Taveras, so does Beavers. Just put Cowser out there. The benefit he gives you defensively far outweighs any minuscule advantage you think you'll get with those other guys at the plate against left-handers. And guess what? He can still flash the power against the lefty like he did on Sunday. Just put him out there. Also had a single later in the game. And listen, it's only been about 30 plate appearances in August because he hasn't been playing a whole lot. But his OPS is over 950 in this month. Just put him in center field every day. But I think I yell that every episode, and it's still not being done. Fifth and final thing you need to know from the Orioles' 10-2 win over the Rays on Sunday to win all 3 games at the Trop this weekend is that Trevor Rogers didn't really need to be that good because of the 10 runs of run support, but he was good anyway. Just kind of hammering the 4-seam fastball. 60% usage for Rogers was his highest fastball usage in a single start since 2022. And I mean, the usage has been up this month. He's throwing it more than half the time. It's the first month since 2022 where he's done that. Velo was up again around 95. 2/3 of the pitches were in the zone. Got about a 30% whiff rate on that 4-seamer up. You know, he gave up a solo homer to Ryan Valade on that pitch. Valade had a really nice day offensively and defensively, kind of the only good player for the Rays on Sunday. But Rogers was just good again. He continues to roll along here. It was 6 innings of 2-run ball, 7 hits, 6 Ks, 1 walk, and a homer on 98 pitches for the left-hander. Was actually kind of surprised the Orioles set him back out there in the 6th. I mean, the Rays used 3 pitchers through 60 pitches. Scored 7 runs in the top of the 6th inning. But Rogers' pitch count was only in the 70s, and I thought he maybe sat too long to come back out there. But Albernaz sent him back out there. He did give up another run in the 6th, but Albie let him finish the inning, and he did so to keep it at 10-2. I thought the changeup was pretty good early in the game. You know, he sprayed it command-wise a little later on, but it was down and away consistently to right-handed hitters early on, which is something he's really struggled with on that changeup this year, so that was a good sign. And then when it's 10-2, you know, you don't have to go to your high-leverage guys, and they always get scoreless innings from Alex Hoppe in the 7th, Grant Wolfram in the 8th, and Albert Suarez in the 9th to close out this win. 6 consecutive wins for the Orioles against the Rays after they swept them at home back in May. Their longest winning streak ever versus the Rays is 8 straight against Tampa back in 2007. But that's the best team in the American League this year. And the O's against them lately, well, they've been looking pretty good. But let's see if they can do it one more time, because this is one of those weird 4-game wraparound series that goes Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. That's right. That's why I'm not calling it a sweep, because the series is not over. It's a 6:05 p.m. Eastern time start tonight on MASN. Brandon Young will take the ball for the Orioles, and Shane McClanahan is going to grab the baseball for the Rays. The 29-year-old lefty and Baltimore native McClanahan, who has been on the injured list for about 2 weeks now with some back tightness, is going to be activated off the IL tonight to start the final game of this series. McClanahan has been his usual incredible self back from injury this year. He's got a 3.09 ERA in 20 starts on the season. I believe he did see the Orioles twice earlier this year. Yes, he did, but the O's kind of got him. May 18th, 5 innings, 4 runs, but he responded May 25th against the O's with 5 1/3 scoreless against Baltimore. We know the O's have had some struggles against lefties. Even 3 out of 4 in this series would be gigantic, but if they could finish off the mop tonight, that would be truly unreal. And they're going to do it from a pretty good spot, because if you look at the MLB scoreboard from Sunday, the O's got some help. The Yankees finally beat the Blue Jays in 10 innings, so the O's are a game up on Toronto. The White Sox came back and beat the Tigers 7-5, so O's are one game up on the Tigers. The Phillies came back from 5-0 down. Dean Kramer kind of blew up in the 6th inning and beat the Twins 7-5. O's a game and a half up on the Twins. And as I'm recording, it's Rangers 2 and Athletics 2 in the top of the 4th inning. If the A's win this game, the Orioles will wake up Monday morning all alone in the 3rd wildcard spot in the American League. Wouldn't that be something? And even if the Rangers win, the O's will still be just a half game back of that playoff spot. But either way, I'm going to be back tomorrow. I will recap the final game between the O's and the Rays. Until then, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe to the Locked On Orioles YouTube channel. If you're a listener on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, wherever you listen, subscribe to the show, follow the show, leave a 5-star rating and a review. It really helps us out. And if you really like Locked On Orioles, you can check out the Everydayer Club, right? It was popping off in the Everydayer Club Discord channel this weekend through all the games. You can sign up for $5 per month. You get ad-free episodes. You get access to the Discord channel, and you get 2 bonus episodes per month that are only for Everydayer Club subscribers. The first one of August went out on Saturday. I went back and looked at some similar trades to the Adley-Rutschman deal from the last 20 years when a team traded away kind of a face of the franchise type player with more than a year of control left to see what their return was in that trade and what the Orioles should be hoping for. I thought it was a good breakdown in that bonus episode on Saturday. So you can do all that. Sign up for the Everydayer Club. You go to lockedonorioles.supercast.com to get even more Locked On Orioles. And of course, if you have feedback on the show, questions, want to talk some ball, whatever it may be, you can always reach out, lockedonorioles@gmail.com. Back tomorrow to recap the final game between the O's and the Rays and announce the winner of the Adley-Rutschman golfing bobblehead from the giveaway on YouTube we did last week. But until then, I'm Connor Newcomb, and this has been the Locked On Orioles podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.